The rain had just started when I stepped out of my apartment, the mist soft but steady clinging to my gown and flattening the curls I'd spent half an hour on. I kept one hand over my cap, the other gripping my purse. It was 3 blocks to the bus stop, 12 to campus if I walked the whole way. I didn't check the bus schedule. I didn't need another disappointment today. As I turned the corner near Walnut Street, a silver Tesla glided past. For a second, I thought it might be them, but no, the license plate didn't match. My phone buzzed. I already knew what it was. I stopped under a tree and checked the screen, a photo of Caleb in front of his new car, one arm flung over the roof, the other holding up his key fob like a trophy. White exterior, black rims, red bow, caption from Mom. Our boy earned it. Right below it, a message from Dad. Walk there, we're buying your brother a Tesla. I stood frozen while a jogger brushed past, casting a curious glance at my soaked gown. I didn't feel the cold. I didn't feel much of anything. By the time I reached 15th Street, I wasn't thinking about the rain anymore. I was thinking about birthdays they forgot, college forms I signed alone, and the way Dad always said I was low maintenance like it was a compliment. I remembered how Mom once said I was lucky to be so independent right after she missed my debate finals for Caleb's dentist appointment. The walk felt longer than it should have. Or maybe it just always feels that way when no one's waiting at the finish line. Campus came into view through the fog. Somewhere behind the tall brick buildings, graduates were gathering families, taking pictures, people who had someone driving them there. I kept walking, adjusting the tassel that had already started to droop from the damp. I'd made it this far without anyone holding my hand. I didn't expect them to start now. When I was 9, I won the district spelling bee. My name was in the school newsletter, and I came home with a trophy almost as tall as my backpack. That same weekend, Caleb scored a goal in his under-6 soccer game, a goal against his own team, but a goal nonetheless. My parents brought cupcakes to his next practice. My trophy gathered dust on the kitchen counter until someone moved it to the garage shelf. They said I was the reliable one, the quiet achiever, the daughter who didn't cause trouble. I used to think that was a good thing. By 13, I understood how it worked. If Caleb brought home a B-, we ordered pizza. If I brought home straight A's, Dad gave a nod. That's what we expect from you, Lena. I started hiding my report cards just to see if anyone would notice. They didn't. On my 16th birthday, I got a recycled shopping bag with a thrift store sweater and a brochure for a used car lot. We'll help you when you're ready, Mom said. When Caleb turned 16, they rented out a rec center, hired a DJ, and handed him keys to a used BMW low-mileage leather seats. Still had that new car smell. I got my first job the following summer, saving every shift to pay insurance on the old Honda I eventually bought myself. Caleb never worked a day in high school. When he started college, they covered tuition rent and a monthly living stipend that exceeded my entire scholarship budget. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was stronger for it, more independent, more capable. That's what people always say, isn't it? That you're resilient when no one shows up for you, that you're mature when you stop asking for help. But even the strongest child gets tired of clapping alone. That thought lingered as I stepped onto campus, wiping the rain from my sleeves. A cluster of students stood under a white tent, laughing with parents who held cameras and coffee cups. I spotted my roommate Noah waving in the distance, but not my parents. 3 weeks before graduation, I called home. The Toyota had started making a hollow knocking sound every time I hit 35, and the mechanic said something vague but expensive about the transmission. I didn't ask them for a new car. I just said carefully I might need help getting to the ceremony. It's across town, and I don't think the car'll make it. There was a pause. I could hear Dad typing in the background. Can't one of your roommates drive you? They're all graduating too, I said. We have to be there early for lineup. We'll figure something out, Mom chimed in. By the way, did we tell you Caleb made Dean's List this semester? I didn't respond right away. Caleb's major was communications. The GPA cutoff for Dean's List there was barely above a C+. He's been working so hard, she added. Honestly, we're thinking about doing something special for him. He's been under so much pressure with fraternity life and everything. I almost laughed, but it came out dry in my throat. The next time I stopped by the house to grab the last box of winter clothes from the basement, I came in through the side door. They didn't hear me. From the kitchen, their voices floated down the hallway. The dealership said they could get it delivered by Friday, Dad said. Just in time. Oh, and we'll park it near the ceremony entrance. Everyone will see it when we walk in. I froze. It'll be perfect, Mom said. Caleb in his suit, the white Tesla that bow. People will think he's the graduate. I didn't realize I'd made a sound until they turned and saw me in the doorway. My father cleared his throat. Hey, Lena, we didn't know you were here. I just nodded. I came for my box. Neither of them mentioned the car. Neither asked if I needed help getting to graduation. As I loaded my things into the trunk, I stared at the peeling bumper, the back seat with a tear in the fabric, the rattle that grew louder with each mile. Then I closed the lid and told myself again that I was used to this. Used to showing up alone. Used to not being part of the plan. The morning mist hadn't lifted by the time I stepped outside. My gown clung to my legs as I walked, and the navy dress underneath was already damp at the hem. A breeze tugged at my cap, and I pressed it down with one hand, the other clutching the strap of my tote. My shoes slapped against the wet pavement. I passed 3 families taking pictures on their porches, parents adjusting ties and smoothing out gowns. I kept my eyes ahead. The bus stop was empty when I arrived, except for an older woman seated on the bench with an umbrella resting against her knee. She looked up as I approached. Her eyes were kind, the kind that scan you once and understand more than they let on. "Graduating today?" she asked. I nodded. "University of Colorado." She patted the seat beside her. "Sit before you soak through. I'm Doris." I hesitated, then joined her under the wide arc of her umbrella. "Lena." "Family meeting you there?" she asked, as if the answer wasn't already obvious. I hesitated. "They're coming later. I had to get there early for lineup." Doris didn't press. Instead, she chuckled softly. "I took the bus to my graduation, too. Nursing school, 1963. My parents were at my brother's baseball tournament." She paused. "They sent a telegram afterward. Missed my name being called." I didn't know what to say. She just looked ahead. "You learn not to need applause," she added, but it still would have been nice to hear it. The bus groaned to a stop in front of us. The driver, a man with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile, looked down at my gown and waved me on. "No fare today," he said. "Congratulations." Inside, a woman in scrubs stood and offered me her seat. Another passenger, a teenager with earbuds, gave me a quick thumbs up. I mumbled thanks and sat down, cradling my tote in my lap. The small kindnesses hit harder than I expected. Doris settled across from me, umbrella now folded neatly in her lap. As the bus rumbled toward campus, my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb Tesla is amazing. "Driving everyone to your thing now. Can't wait for people to see it." I turned the phone off and slipped it into my bag. The driver turned onto Broadway. I could already see the white tents rising between the brick buildings ahead. The graduate assembly area was a mix of nerves and noise, rows of caps cords and gowns shifting in loose formation. I found my place among the marketing majors and kept my head down, adjusting the tassel on my cap more times than necessary. Noah spotted me from 2 rows over and waved with both hands. I smiled, grateful for her steady presence even from a distance. Around us, families were filling in the rows of folding chairs on the lawn. I saw mothers fussing with collars, grandparents snapping photos, younger siblings running between aisles with juice boxes in hand. But not mine. As the announcer gave instructions, "Clap at the end, keep moving, smile for the cameras," I scanned the crowd again. Still no sign of them. We began the procession slowly, one pair at a time. The music swelled string instruments and brass, and we stepped onto the long green stretch leading to the stage. People clapped. Some cheered, a few cried. I walked with measured steps, hands clenched at my sides. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to look for them again. But when I reached my seat, I couldn't help it. There, finally weaving awkwardly through the far left section, were my parents. Late, of course. My mother was on her phone, trying to text and scan the crowd at the same time. My dad was talking to a man in a suit, laughing like he was networking at a conference. Caleb trailed behind them, wearing a sleek blue suit and sunglasses, holding the Tesla fob in his hand like a VIP pass. They hadn't seen me. Or if they had, they hadn't stopped long enough to notice. Names started echoing across the field. Students walked across the stage to polite applause, occasional whistles, camera flashes. I clapped where appropriate, smiled when classmates returned to their seats. All the while, I waited for the ache in my chest to settle. It didn't. When the announcer reached the M's, I sat up straighter. I heard the lead-in Bachelor of Science in Marketing, followed by my name. Lena Marlowe, summa cum laude. I stood. My cap nearly slipped as I stepped into the aisle. Every breath felt like it might crack something open inside me. Then, from the very back of the seating area, a sound pierced through the polite murmur of the crowd, sharp, clear, and unmistakably proud. A cheer. Not a small one, not a single voice. A full, joyful yell. I turned my head. At the edge of the crowd near the overflow seating stood June, waving both arms in the air. Noah held up one end of a large yellow banner that read in bold letters, "We see you, Lena." Next to them were Thomas and Kayla from the library, clapping like I'd just won the Pulitzer. Kayla had even brought a balloon now bouncing against her shoulder in the wind. I felt the tears immediately hot, fast, unstoppable. Not the kind that sting with sadness. The kind that say, finally. I walked across the stage and shook the dean's hand, gripping the diploma like it was something I'd carved from stone. When I turned back toward the seats, I found them again my people, my real cheering section. And just past them, I saw my parents. Mom was frozen mid-text, staring. Dad had one hand shielding his eyes from the sun, scanning the noise. Caleb stood still, frowning slightly. For once, none of them were the center of attention. And it showed. I walked back to my seat with my head high, my vision still wet, but my back straight. My diploma in one hand and something steadier settling inside me. Because for the first time in a very long time, I hadn't needed them to see me. Someone already had. The courtyard was swarming families with flowers, professors in heavy robes, cameras flashing like a red carpet. I weaved through the clusters until I spotted June near a tree. The banner now folded neatly under her arm, her other hand wrapped around a paper cup of tea. "You did it," she said, pulling me into a hug. "And you were luminous up there." Before I could reply, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "There you are," Mom said brightly, as if we'd simply lost each other in the crowd. Dad stood behind her, already adjusting the strap on his camera bag. Caleb hovered a few feet away, holding a Tesla key fob and spinning it slowly around his finger. "We need to get some quick pictures by the car," Mom continued. "It's parked in the VIP section, thank God." Caleb had to parallel park, but you should have seen it flawless. She turned, already walking toward the lot. "No," I said. She paused. "What do you mean?" "No, I'm not posing in front of Caleb's Tesla on my graduation day." "Don't be difficult, Lena. It's just a few pictures." "It's never just a few pictures," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it landed. Dad stopped fiddling with the lens cap. Caleb blinked. "It's every moment like this one where you forget whose day it is, where you turn my achievements into his backdrop." I walked to my own graduation. "You didn't even ask how I was getting here." "You're always so independent," Mom said, her voice tightening. "We thought you preferred that." "No," I said calmly. "You just preferred not to be responsible." Caleb stepped forward. "I didn't ask for the car." "I know," I said. "You didn't have to." Mom opened her mouth again, but another voice cut in. Elena June said, stepping beside me, "Do you remember how your father treated Carol growing up?" Mom's face changed. She was the one who worked quietly, who never demanded attention, and he made her invisible for it. And now, here you are doing the same thing to your own daughter. "Mom, this isn't the time," Mom muttered, glancing around at the families nearby. "If not now," when June asked. "You raised 2 children and taught only one that love was guaranteed. The other had to earn it and never quite did." Mom's eyes glistened, but she didn't say a word. Dad just looked at the ground. "I'm going to dinner," I said, turning to Noah, who had been standing a few paces behind me, silent but watchful. With people who wanted to celebrate me, I added my voice steady. "You can't just walk away from your family," Dad called after me. I didn't stop. "Watch me." Noah fell into step beside me, and we started toward the sidewalk. I didn't look back, not until I heard Caleb's voice behind us. "So, we're not doing Tesla pics?" he asked, genuinely confused. The absurdity hit me all at once, how utterly detached they were from everything real, how even now they couldn't read the moment. I laughed. A short, sharp, startled kind of laugh that surprised even me. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't joy either. Just something honest breaking loose after years of holding everything in. I kept walking, arm-looped through Noah's, feeling the sound linger behind me like a door closing. They knocked around 10. I almost didn't answer. Noah had offered to stay, but I told her I needed to do this alone. I opened the door to find both of them standing there, Mom still in her heels, Dad holding a takeout bag like an awkward peace offering. "We need to talk," Dad said, stepping inside before I could say yes or no. I let them in. We sat in the living room, the same second-hand couch they'd always turned their noses up at. "We didn't mean to upset you," Mom started, "but your behavior today," I cut her off with a shoebox. I placed it on the coffee table and opened the lid. Inside birthday cards, printed emails, a few faded photos. I pulled out a card from my 16th birthday. No note, just a $20 bill and Dad's initials. I laid it next to a framed photo of Caleb at 16 surrounded by balloons holding keys to a used BMW. Next, my college acceptance letter with no reply. Then, an old bank receipt my account with $142 during sophomore year. I placed it beside a screenshot of Mom's text, just sent Caleb his monthly allowance. He says it's still not enough for gas and groceries. They stared in silence. "I didn't keep these to be petty," I said. I kept them to remind myself I wasn't imagining it. They said nothing. Then a voice from the hallway. "Seriously, Caleb." He stood by the door, having heard enough. He looked at the table, then at me. "I knew it was different," he said quietly. "But I didn't know it was this." Before I could respond, another knock. I opened the door to June, holding a plastic grocery bag and a look that meant business. "I thought you might need backup," she said, stepping inside without waiting. She looked around, saw the evidence laid bare, and nodded. "Well," she said, setting the bag down beside me, "it's about time they looked at the full picture." The apartment was mostly boxes and echoes by the time they arrived. Mom brought sandwiches, Dad brought tape, and Caleb brought silence. We packed in near quiet, broken only by the sound of cardboard folding and drawer handles rattling. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't fake either. Maybe that was something. Dad offered to load the heavier things into his SUV. "You sure you want to take that bookshelf?" he asked. "It's pretty beat up." "I built it myself sophomore year," I said. "I'm taking it." He nodded and didn't argue. Caleb lingered near the kitchen. Just before we left, he handed me a small cardboard box. "I found this in the basement. Don't know why I kept it." Inside was my science fair medal from 4th grade, the one they missed because of his ear infection. It was still on the frayed red ribbon, the bronze dulled, but intact. "You should have had that," he said, eyes down. "Back then." I didn't say thank you. I just took it and slipped it into my bag. When everything was loaded, we stood awkwardly in the living room. No hugs, no promises, just a vague sense that something had shifted. They left first. June stayed behind to ride with me. As we pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "How does it feel to be exactly where you're meant to be?" I looked at the boxes in the back seat, at the cracked spine of my bookshelf, at the small medal in my lap. "Like the beginning," I typed back. Then I hit send and turned toward the road ahead.